What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting, kind of rainy, drizzly day here on the MIgardener channel. But I'm glad you guys are here because today we're going to be taking a field trip to a compost facility because a lot of you want to know what happens when you take a lawn bag and stick it out of the road. Let's go. So when you take a lawn bag and stick it out of the road, they get picked up. But from there, where do they go? Let's go check it out. What's going on, everyone? We're at Indian Summer's compost facility. I thought it'd be a fun opportunity for us to kind of showcase what goes on at a compost facility. This is actually one of Michigan's largest compost facilities. And here they actually take all of St. Clair County's municipal waste. That means any yard waste that goes out, like that lawn bag that we were sitting out at the road, that all gets picked up and taken here. Now, we didn't pick the worst day to do this, but we're getting tarped up, and a lot of you just want to see where compost goes if it's not done at your home. All right, so he kind of missed. He kind of missed a little bit when he dumped it, but that's okay. We'll just drive a little bit, and it'll kind of move around. We don't have that long of a drive, thank goodness. But let's get out of the way because there's some trucks coming, and then I want to tell you a little bit more about this place. All right, so we just had to get out of the way because there's a ton of truck activity. If you can't tell behind us, there is just tons going on. This is, like I said, one of the largest compost facilities. So whether you're a landscaping company with things like grass clippings or tree trimmings, or whether you are a recycling facility that's picking up yard waste, or even like a farmer that just has cow manure or horse manure, it all can come here, anything that can decompose. And so behind us we got, they are flipping a pile, and what they do is they essentially make these big berms of organic material. And what she was telling me is that they let that organic material sit and cook. It's known as hot composting. That's what generates all that steam. And it gets super, super hot. And what that does is it helps to actually break down the organic material. Because in those piles those piles have probably more than a couple trillion beneficial bacteria, aerobic bacteria. That means they're moving and grooving. And what they're doing is they're flipping it, and it's getting oxygen into the pile, helping it to heat up, helping it to break down faster. But those piles will sit for almost 6 to 12 months before they're finished to where they actually get sorted and sifted. And that's what we actually ended up with in our trailer, was the sifted, beautiful, finished compost. So on this facility, they have over 20 piles, and this is just one of them. This is just one of the finished piles. So anywhere from a home gardener to a farmer can actually purchase this stuff, and it's super affordable. And so the reason why we don't use everything in our compost pile is because our compost piles do get hot, but nothing like the heat generated in these compost piles. She actually told me that a week ago they had a compost fire, and that means there's so much aerobic activity, so much internal kind of temperature being built up that it actually causes a fire. And the smell is like methane. It's like breaking down organic material. All those things contribute to an environment that we couldn't replicate at our home garden. And so things like weeds, things like seeds and stuff that might spread, I'd much rather them go here and get broken down in a way that makes them never able to sprout again, than if we were to compost them at our house and do a subpar job and then end up with a bunch of weeds and seeds and stuff sprouting in our garden. So they're doing an awesome job here. And I just really wanted to showcase that because so many of you set out yard bags at your road and don't even know where they go. So the reason why I always say to not go with a store-bought bagged compost, if at all possible, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's definitely not the best thing. It's also not the best for your wallet. This beautiful pile of absolutely incredible, rich, this stuff smells heavenly. This pile of compost right here cost me just $60. They start a minimum load for the average Joe coming in off the street is $60. You have to buy at least $60 worth just because the size of equipment that they use is so large. So This thing cost us 60 bucks, but there's probably, I'd say at least 2, maybe even 3 yards of compost here. And so this is gonna fill up, I would say, full raised beds of ours, probably 3 to 4 full raised beds. If this was bagged at the store, we'd probably be spending $300, $500 in bagged compost. So you're saving a ton of money by getting it right from the source. And they do it in bulk, and it's right from the source. So that's why I always say, seek this out. It's about a 12-mile drive for us, but it's so worth it. 12 miles is nothing. We're probably gonna lose a little bit on the way. If we had an enclosed trailer, we wouldn't lose as much. But well, you know, we'll fertilize the road as we go. So, all right, sounds good. Let's get back to the garden. Fun fact for you: in 1 tablespoon of compost, there's nearly as many colonies of bacteria as there are people on Earth. Isn't that crazy? Just 1 tablespoon. How many colonies of bacteria are in that compost facility? That's wild. That's crazy. Another compost fun fact for you. So there's 2 different types of composting. There's hot composting and cold composting. Now the difference between the two is that hot composting is actively flipped. There's a lot of oxygen and aeration going on. But cold composting is just like a forest floor. It's anaerobic. There's no oxygen involved. It happens very slowly over the course of several years. And what's cool about cold composting is that cold composting has more of a fungally dominated compost. That's because fungus, like mushrooms, typically are the things that break down organic material in an anaerobic or cold composting method, whereas bacteria typically break down in a hot composting method. So if you want a bacterially dominated compost, you go hot. If you want a fungally dominated compost, you go cold. Now, what does that really do for the garden? Well, I'll tell you. So if you're growing things like fruit trees or perennials, you want to go with a more fungally dominated compost. Reason being is the mycorrhizae fungi. That's actually a beneficial fungus in the soil that helps to fix things like nitrogen, helps to expand the root system more. Your perennials and fruit trees and even ornamentals are going to benefit from that more than if you were to put a fungally dominated compost on, say, a tomato plant or an annual. Annuals benefit more from a bacterially dominated compost because what those bacteria will do is they actually go out and seek out the things like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, the trace minerals. They actually mine them and they bring them back to the plant. They don't actually attach to the roots as much as things like mycorrhizae fungi do. So by having that symbiotic relationship between fungus and bacteria and plant roots can kind of help you decide which compost you should be going with. All right, one last compost fun fact for you guys. A lot of you don't like the smell of compost because you say it smells like methane or cow farts. The reason why it smells like methane and cow farts is because you're not flipping it enough. If you actively aerate your compost, you're getting oxygen in there, and it actually deprives a certain type of bacteria called a methanogen. Now, methanogens are a bacteria that survive in an oxygen-deprived environment, an anaerobic environment. So if you go to a swamp and you dig up some of the muck from the bottom of the swamp and you smell it, it smells like a swamp because it's releasing that methane gas. If you have cow poop sitting in a pile and it smells like cow poop, that's because it's an oxygen-deprived environment with lots of methane. And methane can actually kill off beneficial bacteria. So it's a way of them actually reducing other forms of competition. The methane, the methanogens, the methane-loving bacteria do not want to compete with aerobic bacteria, which are actually healthier, far more resilient. So they create this noxious gas called methane to kill off their competition. And so all you have to do is simply flip it, get oxygen in there, and that reduces their environment, actually invites beneficial bacteria that don't create methane, and you're not going to have a bad smell. It's going to smell very fresh and very earthy. It's going to smell like the compost behind us smells because it's been flipped. All those piles that had been sitting left an absolutely ridiculous amount of methane in the air. As soon as they cracked those things open to start flipping them, all you smelled was methane. In fact, it took Ashlyn and I's breath away because it was so intense. But as soon as they start flipping it, that methane escapes, the beneficial bacteria come in, the aerobic bacteria, and you get no more methane. So flip your compost more often, and no one's gonna smell it at all. Not even someone that doesn't even like compost. You know, a lot of people don't like their next door neighbors, or a lot of people are fearful of their next door neighbors tattling on them for a bad smell. No one's gonna smell it. No one's even gonna notice that you're composting because you're flipping it so often. That's the secret. All right, we're back. It's still raining, still a nasty day here in Michigan, but we got a nice load of compost for the garden, and we're gonna be applying it to the garden over the next couple days, filling up the raised beds and getting them topped off. So that is awesome. I just want to thank Indian Summers for doing what they do. It's a great service, and I would really encourage you guys to check out some local composting facilities in your area. They're a wonderful resource, and so many places have them. They just don't get the awareness or publicity because they're usually just places that compost kind of, and they sell it in bulk to places like farms, right? But you can get them as an individual. And for us, there's no cheaper resource because our tax dollars actually go to paying for municipal waste pickup. And so they sell it back to us at a discount. They're kind of making money on both sides of the coin, which is awesome. But it is a super cheap resource, $15 a yard. Tell me anywhere you can get that high quality compost for $15 a yard. It just doesn't happen anywhere. So I'd recommend doing your research. Just look up compost facility near me or something like that, and I guarantee you got one. Or what you can do is you can always call a tree trimming company, a landscaping company, and see where they're taking their stuff. Some take it to a recycling facility, others take theirs to a landfill, but some places, a lot of places, do have a composting facility. So check that out if at all possible. Rent a trailer, it's well worth it, even if you have to make a couple trips. So the final thing I wanted to address is a question. Wow, it's raining hard. The final thing that I thought I would address, better hit that like button because I'm getting drenched for you guys, is the question of why we don't just compost everything on site. And I did address that a little bit when we were at the compost facility, but the reason why, the main reason why, is they take stuff that I don't want to compost. Things like noxious weeds, roots from things like thistle, or certain types of crabgrasses can be very invasive. The roots can actually spread. Things like sow thistle or Canada thistle are terrible, terrible weeds I do not want to compost because I don't even want to risk it. Seeds from things like bindweed or smartweed or Palmer's amaranth, tons of different noxious weeds, seeds, right, that I don't have the temperatures to safely destroy those, right? They do, I don't. And also too, dilution, right? If I take all those weeds and I throw them in my compost pile, I have so much concentration of them. Whereas if I take them to a compost facility, they're getting mixed in with so much other stuff that they get diluted down as well as destroyed from heat, far less of a risk. So I'd rather send those to a compost facility. But yes, I do have a compost pile. We actually have two. We have a finished pile, just like they do, and we have a finishing pile that's still getting composted, just like they do. It's a much smaller scale. It's cute, it's tiny. It provides a ton of organic material from our own property to our garden, but some stuff is just better off in their hands. And so that's why we still will stick out yard waste because, well, hey, it all comes back to us in the end. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will also post information to Indian Summers in the description box down below. If you're in the area, check them out. They're awesome. Appreciate what they do. And as always, take care, guys.